I'm not a designer, but I built a YouTube thumbnail automation and agent that takes high-performing thumbnails within my niche and turns them into on-brand thumbnails that I can use within my YouTube videos. Here's the thing. I spent months looking for the perfect tool that's going to be able to create on-brand thumbnails for me, but majority of the time I just hit a roadblock. They ended up costing too much money and adding another subscription cost, or they ended up still requiring me to manually go into the platform and turn my videos into a YouTube thumbnail. Now, I don't like doing manual work, and I definitely don't like paying for extra subscriptions. So I'm going to show you the YouTube thumbnail automation and agent that I built that doesn't require Higgsfield, but more importantly, runs without my management. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into today's video. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about what it takes in order to create a high-performing thumbnail. Now, there is some things that you need to know. One, there needs to be some pre-work. So in order to create a YouTube thumbnail, you do have to actually record the video. So I have a couple agents on the back end that we're not going to share in this video. Maybe in future videos I'll share it. But it basically identifies and creates the script, and then I go ahead and do the film, and then I upload it into a database. Now, my recommended database for this is I upload it into Airtable. That's kind of where I host my entire content engine. Now, in terms of the way that I wanted this thumbnail automation to work is when I actually upload the video into this database, I also want to upload the transcript. And the transcript is the thing that pretty much fuels everything. It fuels the chapter description, it fuels the thumbnail, it fuels the article that goes out, everything. And so with this transcript, I want to take this transcript and I actually want to send it out to an outlier research tool, which I'm going to share with you in just a second. And so what this research tool does is it looks throughout YouTube to identify what YouTube videos are related within the content of my video, goes ahead and grabs those YouTube thumbnails on my behalf. And then when this thumbnail agent actually works, it's going to go ahead and I take those images that are pulled from those outlier videos and paste it back into my database, just so that we have inspiration. Sometimes with thumbnail videos, we actually end up having more than one thumbnail. So it's posting all of that as a form of inspiration. Then when that happens, we actually have a trigger that will then trigger the specific Zapier automation that's going to take all this information and create the thumbnail for me automatically. And so let's go ahead and see what you need. And so what you need as well in order to implement this automation is you do need Gemini. Now, I guess there is a subscription that you could purchase separately just to get access to their image model. Now, for me, I already have Gemini built within my Google Workspace plan. So if you already have Google Workspace as part of your plan, you probably already have access to Gemini. I don't think personally I spend more than $12 a month. That's pretty cool that I get an AI model plus my Google Workspace. Now, in terms of what we're running our agents on, we're going to be running them on Claude. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then in terms of triggering the automation so that this all flows automatically based on the conditions we set forth, we're using Zapier as part of that process. And that comes out to about $20 a month. And then in terms of our outlier research tool, that's going to go ahead and find those YouTube thumbnails on my behalf. That comes out, I believe, to about $29, $25 a month. Now, you've seen the plan. Let me go ahead and show you how it looks like on behind the scenes. So in terms of what this looks like behind the scenes, a couple of things you should know. So like I said, I have a database where I have all of my content pasted in here. And so this is an example of a finished record that we did earlier. This is an example of a YouTube thumbnail that my automation actually built for me. But in terms of what I'm going to do right after I film this video is I'm actually just going to go ahead and upload the transcript of the video into here. And then I also need to upload the asset, which is the actual video asset, which is this video right here as an example. And the reason why we put those two things is because essentially within this database, we're going to go ahead and trigger this automation. So as you can see, this triggered previously. But the conditions of this automation is that the transcript's there, as well as just any additional information pieces that we need here to trigger this particular and go into this view. Now, what happens when a record enters this view? What will happen is that it will go ahead and trigger this particular automation. So essentially with this automation, we have it so that if a post comes in and we're limiting it to that specific view, we're going to go ahead and pull that ahead and send a Zapier so a webhook to a Claude agent. So that is the way that we're able to run agents automatically, not on a schedule, but based on conditions. It's actually what I personally recommend. So you don't hit your like daily limit for running Claude agents. And so when this agent gets triggered, what it does is it actually takes the record information and creates that YouTube description for me. It creates and does the research for the thumbnail. In terms of what happens when it gets to this step, I'll show you an example. This is the example of what happens when it goes on this step, but basically it head and actually receives the record, and then it does use the Eden MCP, and that is kind of the reason why I like the Eden MCP, is because it actually does research on my behalf and identifies like, well, here are the YouTube videos that are very similarly within your niche. You should probably check them out. And then it actually creates the YouTube title, it creates the thumbnail prompt. So the reason why it does this is because when we are pulling the top outlier videos, it actually analyzes those thumbnails and creates a thumbnail prompt for me and stores it in my database. And so when it puts it in that database, that prompt is going to trigger the next set of steps that I'm going to share with you. And then as you can see, it does a whole bunch of other things where it actually creates a newsletter, creates an article, the whole thing. Now, on the focus of thumbnails and what that actually looks like. So, like I mentioned, that agent will go ahead and write the title, but more importantly, it will create a thumbnail prompt. Now, this prompt is pretty important because essentially it will take the reference images that we selected, use those as inspiration, take the prompt, and then go ahead and actually create the thumbnail. So how does it actually do that? Well, once after we set it to this agent, we have a delay step, and I like to delay it for about 15 minutes, just so that the agent can do its work and update the database as necessary. And then because we have new information that's showing up, we actually want to call upon that video record so I can see, hey, what is the image prompt? What is the new work that this agent had did on my behalf? Now, for me, because what that agent does is it writes and takes the thumbnail images and puts it into my database. Sometimes when we pull different videos and we get different thumbnails, we have multiple thumbnails in one place. So that's important because essentially we're going to use that as inspiration. And so I found these particular links and said like, hey, these are your inspiration images. And I put a filter because if it doesn't find anything, I'm not going to continue and waste my tasks. Like, we're not going to do that. And then another place is I actually have base images. And so base images are essentially like images of myself that I hold in a record so that if I want to call upon it in an automation like this, I can send it and send images of myself, and it will use my picture and use my face to then, have that be as a data source to then create that thumbnail image. So as an example, the base images that it's collecting from would be these images. Now, in terms of like images, I always recommend to have like a full body shot, different angles of your face, things like that, so the model can actually really be trained on your image and your likeness. And so once it goes ahead and pulls all the images, we want to get those individual URLs and separate them. And then we actually send it to the Google AI Studio. And what I really like about this is because Gemini is already built into Zapier. So I don't like Higgsfield because if you think about it, Higgsfield is already using Gemini. But the problem with Higgsfield is that you are probably paying a premium to use their tool when you can actually go direct to source. And so I'm just going to go directly to Gemini and do that. And so essentially, I'm going to go ahead and generate an image. And I'm going to go use Nano Banana 2. And because we created that YouTube thumbnail prompt within our Claude agent, as you can see, this prompt was generated by this agent. I'm just going to go ahead and put that prompt in there. And I'm going to take the inspiration images that we found here from the YouTube videos. I'm going to put them in here. I'm also going to take the base images that we found and put them in here as well. And so then ultimately, we test this and we get a URL that actually shows our image of the thumbnail piece. Now it goes ahead and does all this extra things for myself as part of admin stuff, but then we end up like this, where basically I didn't really have to do anything. My thumbnail automation basically created this entire thumbnail for me on my behalf. I think it looks pretty good and I believe it's ready to go. Now, I do take this automation a step further, and it's like, okay, for me personally, I have seen good results from this, so I don't really need to check it as do, then I have enough time to edit it, and of course, but then I create the YouTube tags and then I upload it into YouTube with the thumbnail and all the pieces that we see here. So essentially, like, I have an agent system that really creates the thumbnail for me. And my end goal at the end of the day is all I want to do is just film and upload. When we have agents or automations do everything after, that's when the real magic comes in, because you get to focus purely on creativity and content creation as opposed to admin and execution. Now, if you're looking for more automation breakdowns like this, I definitely recommend you join the newsletter below. And if you want more automation recipes, all those things, then I encourage you to check out Automations Lab. And if you want a system like this built for yourself, then for my time and my strategy, I'm happy to offer you a systems audit where I can actually go and deep dive and see how we can build systems for you on your behalf. That's go ahead and linked in the description below. So thank you for this video. It goes a long way, but the free way that you can help me is by liking, commenting, and subscribing to this video. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.